Hi everyone. I just wanted to start out with saying to please excuse my voice if it sounds like I have a cold. I do have a small cold. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing what we're going to use for first grade for grammar. I'm going to be using two different, curriculums or two different resources. The first one that I'm actually very excited for is because I love this book and I just agree with a lot of the talk about the development of a child. So she made her own grammar book for homeschoolers. And so this is what it is. It's first language lessons, and this is level 1. So this is kind of geared toward that age range of first grade. So I'm going to be using this, and along with that, I'm going to be using Growing with Grammar level 1. And so I'm going to go ahead and share both and the differences and why I'm using both. I'm going to go ahead and start with this because I am most excited for this one. I'm going to start with the table of contents here. So you'll notice in lesson 1, they learn about nouns, then they use a poem to memorize the definition of a noun. They continue with nouns for a little while. They go into the different kinds of nouns. You'll notice that they'll kind of go over the same concept for quite a few lessons, and that's to help them to have mastery over that concept before they move on to something else. And that's one of the differences between this book and this book, but we'll get into that later. So then after that, they go into common nouns, and then you'll see that it seems like there's a lot of lessons that might seem overwhelming at first, but really when I get into this book, you'll see the lessons are super short and that they could do probably like less than 10 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes, which makes sense because for language arts, this is only covering grammar, and there's other things like spelling, vocabulary, literature, reading, phonics, all kinds of things. So thankfully, both of these books are very quick lessons. You'll notice they continue with proper nouns, common nouns, and they use things like poems, passages, copy work, and again, we'll go into that in fuller depth as I go into this section of how this book works, because I'm going to go into that too a little bit. Addresses, more copy work. This is all pretty much about nouns. Here we get into pronouns, and then we get into verbs later on, action verbs, addresses, get into abbreviations, titles, capitalization and punctuation. And then we get into sentences. And this is interesting because in this book, I noticed they start with how to write complete sentences. And over here, she kind of ends the book with sentences, statements, commands, questions, exclamations, and more sentence. So that is kind of a quick overview of the table of contents and where you can find those lessons. Then I'm gonna go to how to use this book. I thought this was really nice, to the point. She kind of explains the learning style of the child and just kind of her own philosophy of how they learn. You can kind of read through that. And then the method of this book is really what helps you to know just how to use this book. So I appreciated here the goals for grade 1. So the first goal, it says to train the child's ear by allowing him to listen to correctly spoken language. And then the second is to train the child's speech by practicing correctly spoken grammar with him. And the third one, to train the child's attention by reading aloud to him and having him narrate back to you the content or storyline using proper grammar. And then the fourth is to teach beginning skills in grammar, capitalization, and punctuation. So focus on beginning skills. So this I really appreciate as well. It says, remember, exposure, not mastery, is the goal at this level. So really this whole year, it's just exposing them to grammar. So we're not expecting perfection. This goes with what it says here. So she uses a 4-strand approach. And so the first strand is memory work. So for the memory work, the child is assigned simple memory work, which are short poems and brief rules and definitions to learn by heart. The poems instill the beauty and rhythm of correct language in the child's mind. The rules and definitions may not be completely understood when they are first committed to memory, but they will be a resource for the child as he continues to exercise his growing language skills. So that's a key I wanted to hone in on. That the definitions, even though they're going to be memorizing them, they may not be completely understood by the child. So again, goes along with what this said. It's just exposing them to them, and it's still going to be good for them to do this because it's going to help them in the future when they're at that level to understand what it is. That's one strand. The second strand is copy work. Most first grade students are not ready to do extensive written work. So again, she's so good with respecting the child and respecting their limits and making sure that they are enjoying learning and by not expecting too much of them and not pushing them too much. It says the first 41 lessons in this book are primarily oral. So I will show that in a bit. And then beginning with lesson 42, then copy work exercises will appear, where the grammar concept being taught requires written practice. But even when in lesson 42, the copy work is very minimal. It's like just a few words. They're not even writing complete sentences yet until later in this book. These copy work exercises do not replace a writing program. They specifically target particular grammar skills. You should feel free to adapt the length of the assignment to the student's ability. So even then again, she's just reminding us that we don't have to even do a full lesson if need be. We remember what the student's ability is and to go at their pace. And then strand 3 is narration. While the student is studying the basic principles of grammar, he's also learning how to produce original content orally. This will allow him to practice correct grammar at a time when he is too young for extensive written work. The two types of narration are used, both intended to train the child in attention, observation, and expression, so that as he matures, he will be able to share his own thoughts with eloquence. So the first one is picture narration. It says some of the lessons ask the student to look at and describe a picture. This allows him to practice observation skills as well as proper language use. Always encourage the child to describe the picture in complete sentences. And then the story narration. In other lessons, you will read a short story to the child and then ask him to tell you about it in his own words. This type of narration helps the child to listen with attention, to comprehend spoken language, and to grasp the main point of a work. And then finally, strand 4 is grammar. The rules of grammar bring order to the chaos of words in the child's mind. The student is taught the correct definitions of grammatical terms from the very beginning. Lessons in oral use are also provided so that the instructor can pinpoint any areas of difficulty in the child's use of language. So using the lessons, this is very self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go through this. It's just saying if it's italicized, what that means, or if it's in bold, what that means. But as you read it, you'll know what it means. So here's lesson 1, just as an example. You'll notice this one is about the introducing common nouns, and there's like nothing for them to write. There's no worksheet, anything. It's all just dialogue for the first lesson. So you'll notice, just to show as an example, they'll give you kind of a script and just as an idea of what you can say. Everything has a name. I will read the definition of a noun aloud to you 3 times. So it says repeat the following sentence 3 times. A noun is the name of a person, place, thing, or idea. And then you read that a couple more times to them. We will talk about persons first. You are a person. Are you a boy or a girl? And then it says here as a note, encourage the student to answer in complete sentences. If he answers with a single word or fragment, turn his answer into a complete sentence and say it to him. Then ask him to repeat the sentence back to you. So obviously when you ask him, are you a boy or a girl? He's probably just going to say boy. And so it's telling us to have them repeat their answer in a complete sentence. I am a boy. And then we can then instruct them that boy and girl are naming words that are common to a lot of persons, so we call them common nouns. Other naming words that are common to a lot of persons are words like mother, father, sister, brother, grandmother, grandfather, aunt, uncle, and cousin. And then another note to us, repeat the definition of a noun 3 more times, emphasizing the word person this time. A noun is the name of a person, place, thing, or idea. So you You can see just from this page alone, the start, that it's a very meaningful conversation that you're having with your kids. You're repeating the definition, you're repeating the main points, you're asking questions, you're getting them to practice saying their complete sentence so that they're now practicing correct grammar. You even add in this detail about common nouns and examples of other common nouns. So it's so short of a lesson. It might take 5 minutes, but to me, in my opinion, it's just, there's already just so much that they've learned just by this conversation that you're having with them. So this is just an example. This is lesson 1. Now, I wanted to go over the 4 strands. So that was an example of memory work because it was a definition, but there's also the poems. So the next lesson is the poem, which is called The Caterpillar. It kind of tells you just how to help them to memorize the poem, repeating it throughout the day. So again, the poems instill the beauty and rhythm of correct language in the child's mind. So that is the purpose of the poem. So really, they're just getting those good examples of correct language and through beauty and rhythm. We can see how enjoyable that can be. And so now that we've gone over the memory work, which was the definition, and then the poem, there's copy work. Let's look at an example of copy work. So it mentioned it's not until later in this book, like halfway, but I'm gonna go down to lesson 75. This is an example of copy work. I use this example because this is where they actually will write down a sentence or more. It says, ask the student to copy one of the following sentences. And you can see how small these sentences are, but they're getting that practice in of how to correctly spell a sentence with correct grammar. Have the student copy his initials and write them from memory. See, that is super short. So that's why I use that lesson as an example of actually writing a sentence. But that's an example of copy work. Now for the narration, it talks about picture narration. Here's an example of a picture narration here. I'm always going to the wrong tab. Okay. You'll notice just through this dialogue that we as an instructor are going to be asking questions to kind of help them with their observation skills. Because I notice with my son, if I ask him, what do you see in the picture? It's almost like it's too broad of a question. He doesn't know what answer I'm looking for. And he just kind of draws a blank, even though there's just, to us as an adult, it's like there's so much to point out. I love how she sets this up because she understands the children, how they think. And so she's asking questions to kind of, okay, let me just get into the questions. Okay, where are the 2 little girls? You know, and again, they might want to say, on the sand or the beach. But again, we want to help them to say the answer in a complete sentence. The 2 little girls are on the beach. And that's the way it goes with all of the questions. However, we're still helping them by asking simple questions. How many boats are on the water? They can look at it. There are 2 boats on the water. And it just goes that way throughout the lesson. That's the picture narration. Okay, so the other narration was a story narration. So here's an example of a story narration later on in the middle of the book. This is what you'd be reading to them. And they're going to narrate in their own words what they got. But again, you'd be asking them questions to help them to remember little points of the story and helping them with their comprehension. And then they will be more prepared for when you ask them for a narration of what they read. What do you remember reading? These questions will hopefully have helped them to remember what it is that they read, and then they can give you a proper narration. And that's again helping them with attention, comprehending the language, and grasping the main point of a work. So I hope that was a helpful flip through of what this entails. You can see, each lesson is different because it contains those 4 components, but it is all very simple and it's very easy and like an open and go for the parent. So for the moment, this is on their website. You can buy it for $16.11 for this one book. You don't need a separate student guide, teacher's guide. It's all in here. All you need is just probably like an extra notebook, so for when they do their copy work and narrations, they can write it in there. But other than that, this is all you need. It's a very fair price. Okay, now growing with grammar level 1, I think this is going to be a lot shorter because it's a little more straightforward. It's not much to it other than every lesson is just a quick, more like a worksheet type of thing. But let me just kind of go through the table of contents like I did with the other book. Here's section 1. This is all about sentences. So like I said, the other book ended with sentences, but this book starts with sentences. So I'm actually not sure if I should just go in order, or if I should kind of correspond this with the other book, but I don't think it will matter anyways, because this one seems like the sentence section is very long anyway. It's longer than the other book. So I'll probably just go ahead and go in order, and he'll have to learn 2 concepts at the same time. But I don't think that's going to be a big issue. But of course, I will always adjust, and when the time comes and I found a way that works best for us, I will definitely update you either on a video or how we adjusted so that it worked best for my son. So, introduction to sentences, complete sentences, subjects, predicates, sentence building, statements, questions, exclamations. And you'll see there's a few lessons for each one. So to get that practice in, sentence review, I just wanted to show the tests really quick, just to get it out of the way. So these are the tests, and you'll notice that on the top, it'll tell you when to use the test. So after lesson 12, he will be using this first test, and it's not very long. It's just front and back, and that was it. And then you'll find the answer keys to all the tests in the back of this packet. So in the back of the packet, I found the answer key for test 1 there, and then it just continues on for the other tests. It even tells you how to grade it. I do like to utilize tests. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I find that it is a nice way for me to just to make sure he understands it without my help, because a lot of times, even though this seems like an independent thing he can do, and maybe it will be independent, again, I will always adjust to what works for us, because this is the thing. This I feel like I will have to do along with him, because the lessons are in this book. The lessons are basically this right here. You know, lesson 1, we use sentences when we speak to each other. A sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought about someone or something. That's all the lesson is. They're not giving you a separate teacher's guide or anything. Like, it's all together here. So this is for me as a teacher to explain to him, unless he's able to do it on his own and understand it, which I doubt. I think I'm going to have to, break it down a little bit, explain, what this means. And then here's the examples. And then he's able to now apply it with this worksheet. A lot of times I do have to do this with him. I have to kind of guide him. Add words to make a complete sentence. A hungry cow, and he's just going to draw a blank. Kind of like the same principle as what was in this book. However, there are other lessons that are more simple, where it's like multiple choice, or like in this case, he's going to be drawing lines to complete the sentence. But still, I have a feeling I'm going to still have to kind of read it with him. Okay, what makes sense with this? The cold wind won first place. Does that make sense? I'm going to have to ask him these questions so that he's like, oh, no, that doesn't. Okay, well, let's try the next one. The cold wind blows. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, draw a line from here to here. So far through kindergarten year, that's kind of how it's been going with us with our homeschool. Again, if that changes and he's like, I don't need your help, Mom, I get it. I can do this on my own. Then that's a different story. And then maybe I won't need the test, because I could just kind of see if he did this correctly. And then, oh, he gets it on his own. I don't need to test him, kind of thing. This is the answer key for this. So this, you open it up and you'll notice lesson 18. These are the answers, and it just goes on and on. So it's really easy to kind of go through that and compare them here. But yeah, this, you can see how different it is than that. This is more dialogue and repetition with the good examples of the passages and pictures, and just talking, showing them through the way they speak. but this is more of a workbook style. And so here he may not be able to show much for it, especially in the first half of the book where there is no copy work done. It's all oral. He's not going to be able to show what he knows. And here he'll be able to write down things so that I can see proof, I guess you can say, that he understands these concepts, and just good practice. So I'm really looking forward to using both these books. I am more excited about this one because I guess I just trust her, this author. Well, it says Jessie Wise. I think that's her daughter. But the book, Well Trained Mind, is from Susan Wise Bauer. Yeah, I really trust this author and their methods of education. This kind of reminds me of when I was in school. This is more traditional, I feel, but it's good just to kind of get him to show what he knows. And it's very simple too. It's just one page pretty much for each lesson. And like half of this is just the lesson part, and then this other half is the worksheet. And there might be something on the back side, but it's still really pretty simple. Here he's just underlining predicates. So I hope this gives a good overview of both of these books. All of these three together, they will come out to $22.99 as of today. You can also just buy these two things without the test, because I know a lot of people don't like tests, for $20.99. So you'll save $2 without the tests. But again, with all of these three, it's $22.99. So that is my flip through of both of these grammar resources. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.